The FA-18 Hornet has a range of over 1,400 nautical miles, requiring it to be refuelled on long missions and ensuring the fighters get to their target and complete their missions and return to base. Training for war is not a game. It requires a realistic approach to all combat situations. And on the 29th of October 1991, 707 Wilberforce was lost in a training accident off the Gippsland coast, with the loss of all 5 crew on board. They were Squadron Leader Mark Lewin, Flight Lieutenant Tim Ellis, Flight Lieutenant Mark Duncan, Warrant Officer John Fawcett, and Warrant Officer Al Gwynn.
It was a very trying time for the squadron, both from an emotional point of view and it was also from, just I guess a psychological point of view that big aeroplanes simply don't crash.
And it wasn't until we saw the first piece of wreckage with a roundel on it that it really struck home that the aircraft had actually crashed. I remember standing on the dune looking out at the sea. Still couldn't quite believe that there was a 707 under the water out there.
In a footnote to this tragedy, the wife of Flight Lieutenant Tim Ellis, Kay Ellis, an air traffic controller at the time, now a squadron leader, has used her experience to assist and counsel commanders and Air Force members to better deal with accidents and death in an appropriate way. In 1992, the 707 completed its first overseas operation in the air-to-air refuelling role, tanking 6 FA-18s for an exercise in Malaysia. Throughout the following years, the Australian Air Force's 707s would become a regular feature at defence exercises and operations around the world. In 1998, training was put to practice, with 233 Squadron 707s deploying to Kuwait City as part of an Allied coalition build-up against Iraq. The squadron would sustain 100% availability for their 2-month deployment, flying 119 sorties, refuelling coalition fighters.
There were no threats to us at that stage. The political situation was obviously that we were sent there in preparation for potential conflict. But Saddam Hussein came to an agreement with the United Nations to allow the inspectors back in. So instead of being part of an invasion force or supporting an invasion force, we actually were then retasked onto Operation Southern Watch.
In 2002, 33 Squadron was deployed again, this time to Manas Air Base in Kyrgyzstan for Operation Slipper, providing air-to-air refuelling capability to Allied aircraft over Afghanistan. The squadron offloaded 2.7 million kilograms of fuel, with over 800 hookups for US Navy and French Air Force jets.
One of the fixtures of our 707 that distinguishes it from your classic airliner 707 is the fitment of a camera pod on the underbelly of the aircraft. This allows the flight engineer on the deck to monitor refuelling operations when the fighters come up behind the jet. It's a low light camera that can be used in nighttime operations.
I have about 70 or 80 people working in the hangar for me, from logistics people, aircraft metalwork, life support, general hands, and then aviation and aircraft maintainers.
Most certainly the tanker is considered a high value asset, or HVA would be the technical term. We have done some exercises over the years where the fighter squadrons will be involved in HVA protection, so part of the scenario will be for them to protect the tanker from any enemy forces.
A swan song for the 707 would come in 2004, with the federal government announcing the selection of 5 Airbus KC-30B multi-role tankers as a replacement for the 707, with the first aircraft to begin service in 2009.
It might be mechanically sound, but the technology's starting to date. You will start to see the occasional gripes and niggles come through. It starts to show its wear and tear.
Well, there were a few events occurred airborne. Probably the one that really got our attention the most was a total hydraulics failure flying into a New Zealand Air Force base. and we had to manually wind the landing gear down and manually wind the flaps out, and then when we were on the ground, steer using the differential thrust of the engines.
Being an ageing aircraft, it becomes increasingly expensive to maintain. Every piece of machinery has a life, and the 70, to its credit, has made it to 40 years old, but it's certainly now time to move on.
The aptly named Richmond Town, one of the original aircraft from Qantas, is the last to carry the torch for 33 Squadron, marking 29 years after it began Air Force service.
It's a time when we're saying goodbye to a grand old lady, this aircraft. It's been a gracious aeroplane. At one stage it was known as the Queen of the Skies.
Once the aircraft's no longer in service, it'll be very sad for the whole 7 years that I was here. To see all the aircraft and then to know that when you come out to Richmond, there won't be any 70s parked here, that the squadron will be gone and all the friends that you've had here have all moved on.
Yeah, catching up with old friends and stuff, so yeah, I'm tearing up anyway.
You just can't beat the job. I'm really going to miss the old girl.
It has been a privilege to be able to work with such an historic aircraft. And there aren't too many people in the aviation community that don't have a soft spot for the 707.
It's going to be quite sad to see the last 70 wrapped up, last man out, turn out the lights. I know all of us here have had a lot of good times.
Yeah, I will miss it. I've loved it. It's been the best time of my life. I've met some of the best people.
It's going to be a really sad day. I mean, my professional life has been 33 Squadron, 707 AAR.
It's been a beautiful aircraft. You walk out one day and it looks like a little pocket rocket, and another day you look at it from a slightly different angle and it looks like a beautiful big jet aircraft. So it's just a lovely aircraft. So I will miss it.
It'll be very sad to see this go as well. But 40 years isn't a bad life for an airplane.
Few aircraft have served Australia like the 707. Through war and hardship, this incredible force multiplier has demonstrated a durability unequalled with any of its counterparts. An airframe built to last, this Lady of the Skies has the heart of a dragon.